Welcome to Creatacast with your host, David Welch. Today's show is going to be a pretty quick one because I've actually got to help a sibling move here. But today's show is kind of a recap of the last couple weeks. I did a lot of work in New York recently. Went to the Bellator fights as media specialist, and it was a blast. Had so much fun. Didn't see any Ninja Turtles, though. Really did. Was looking for Ninja Turtles. Didn't see any. But I did see some really interesting, kind of like taco trucks, but they're like weed trucks. And they sell like, weed candies and edibles and things like that. And in some cases, especially when the NYPD wasn't around, they actually had some other stuff that wasn't necessarily on the menu that they had. But I'm definitely not going to divulge which truck and where. But anyways, it was very interesting because it was my second time in New York. I've been to other parts, but not in Manhattan. That was the first time in Times Square, first time at Madison Square Garden. That was actually a real treat. But it was very interesting to see these trucks and to have them available right there on 7th Avenue, leading all the way to Times Square and leading all the way to Central Park. I loved being there because growing up, seeing so many movies with New York as kind of the backdrop and the setting was really kind of eye-opening for me because I was just seeing different film ideas and film locations everywhere. Like, it was just this thing where I was just constantly in that mindset of, this creative work has impacted me so much that I literally look for it when I'm on location doing my own media, doing my own investigative reporting and things like that. So I had a blast. It was a lot of fun, but the unique part was that those trucks were on the street. Nobody was bothering them. They were, very excited to sell their wares to people on the street. And it was very quick. You walked up, you paid for your candy, and you went right on with your day. And everybody kind of sat there and was like, wow, that just happened. And it was awesome. Honestly, I really do believe that that's where the future is. There's going to be, in all states, you're going to literally have delivery drivers. You're going to have so many things involved with the CBD / weed community that they're literally, it's going to be highly popular, and you're going to be able to get like edibles and shit places, and it's going to get regulated. Now, that's the future. Now that they literally just gave us a taste of what the future holds for the prospect of making THC, CBD things not illegal. Like to take hemp and weed and anything marijuana and make it totally legal. That's what that would look like. It would revitalize an industry and generate so much money that it would be stupid to try and keep count of. It really would. So legalizing something, and yes, regulate it, but please, for the love of God, take it off of Schedule 1, because you still have federal agencies that will go into states that have it legal and still fuck people up who run businesses, run shops, and things like that, because it's still a Schedule 1 drug. That's such an asinine thing. I just don't understand it, how the individual states and the federal government could be so at odds that they have their wires crossed, but one thing's legal and the other thing's not. You can just get prosecuted in federal court, just not state court. And I think that's really dumb, and you're putting a lot of business owners and a lot of people at risk who wouldn't normally get charged because they're moving forward under the premise that it is legal. Now, this is how this affects the creative community. Me as a creative, really dug the idea of sucking on a edible lollipop while snapping pictures in the heart of New York. I loved it. It was great. I felt super awesome. I laid down and had a Jeffrey moment in Central Park. It was amazing. And it was dope. Like, I had the best time. And it's, like I said, it was a creative, for me as a creative, it was a snapshot of what the future can look like. Now, there are other things that New York offered me in my creative aspect. The architecture, obviously, the way things move there. It was great for my cardiovascular system because you literally walk everywhere. If you've not been in Manhattan, you fucking walk everywhere. Like, you have no choice. If you take a cab or you take an Uber, not only is it that motherfucking shit going to be expensive, but it's going to be, it's going to affect you in the sense that you're literally going to be sitting in a car and not really go very far because it's bumper to bumper sometimes, and it's just ridiculous. At night it dies down just a squeak bit, but not a whole lot of bit. And I do like eating there. It was just, like I said, it was a tad bit expensive for somebody who's not been there before and not used to it, but it was really cool. I enjoyed my experience there. I enjoyed having my creative outlet. I still need to write a few articles, but that's where it ties back into creativity too. I can write a good narrative fiction with pictures that I can tie in from my experience. I can write, I'm gonna write actual articles and factual articles for the fighters that I was there witnessing, interacting with, things like that. And if you really are a creative writer, one of the things that I would challenge you to dabble into is investigative journalism. If you can do investigative journalism and gather detail, gather information, gather content, you can be a creative writer. And here's what I mean. Creative writing essentially is providing sensory details and provide readers with a storyline with, very relatable characters, and provide a backdrop and then have a point. I mean, even some stories don't necessarily have to have a point, but they end up having a very good moral implications or societal implications, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve with the story. You can garner all of that from being an investigative journalist for a while. You do not have to work for an organization to be media. You can be an independent journalist. They have what are called stringers in the industry. Stringers are people that are freelance writers and photojournalists that gather content for stories and provide those stories to Reuters, Associated Press, whatever have you, whatever organization you want to try and publish with. You can do the investigation yourself and get public information and do the requests and do all these things, because when it comes to public entities, government entities, and things like that, you as Joe Citizen are also Joe Media. You can gather the content yourself. It is not hard. All it is submitting those requests, waiting for those requests to be satisfied. You go pick up the material, dive through the research, and provide that research and provide that your analysis, in the form of a story. And it's something that I believe that other writers in history have done. Mark Twain was initially a reporter. He was a journalist. He documented what he saw. He was allowed to be on scene for a lot of things that went down during his time, and they got paid per word count. So he very much had to get into the details of what was being published, of what was going on. And that meant interacting with people who had accents, interacting with people who had, who were very intellectual and very, and had things to say and had things to prove and had things to do. So you yourself as Joe Citizen, Joe Creative Writer, can become an investigative journalist yourself and take that head on, and you never know where it can take you. It allows you an avenue of creativity too, because you live in a day and age where you can document every fucking thing you do. You can do a vlog, you could take pictures, you could do Snapchat. I don't care how you do it, but you can open the eyes to people on things that people may not know they care about until you really reveal it to them. So that is going to help you creatively. It is going to help foster your creative juices. It'll allow you to provide yourself information on something that you may not have known about, so you can write about it. Think about people who've written, sci-fi epics or sci-fi films or whatever have you. They had to have been investigators. You looked into something at some point in time that allowed you to really understand something and then be able to turn around and create a narrative that opens the door for people. That's why Star Trek tech is so huge. That's why Star Trek was so revolutionary. Gene Roddenberry, thank God for Star Trek, because we have now come to a point in our society where we're integrating things that were shown on Star Trek back in the 80s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now in the 2000s, and you're coming up on your 2020s. I mean, you have science and technology that's catching up to Star Trek. It's happening. We live in a time where eventually, I could be 70, 80, 90, even 100 years old, and we're going to be able to have the first starships. We're going to be able to have things that are entirely tangible, because honestly, Stephen Hawking did lead us to the idea that, hey, we are going to be a multi-planet species. We're going to have to be. Us sitting on this rock, hoping nothing happens, whether it's a disaster, whether it's man-made or whatever have you, and praying that everything's going to be good always is not the case. We are going to have to branch out, at least within our solar system, if not further, and discover the stars. We are literally living in Hickville when it comes to our own Milky Way. We live on the fucking far wing tip of our galaxy. We know this because we have the observable Milky Way to say, hey, we're probably in just one of the wings way back in the corner. And there's so much out there that we haven't discovered, that, we're on the brink of doing so. So we're a civilization that is on the way to become that. We just need more time, energy, and concentration to make it happen. Now, imagine you're sitting at your writing desk and you're like, well, what the hell am I going to write about? And you just put a little bit of thought into, well, where's the evolution of our society going? That's why you have post-apocalyptic writing. You have Cormac McCarthy's The Road. You have Mad Max. You have so many post-apocalyptic, because that's entirely tangible. You have, Attila Battle, Alita Battle Angel. You have so many other futuristic things. You have Back to the Future. You have Terminator. You have so many things that relate to the future and time and things like that, because all of those concepts are tangible within our understanding of things. So if you do an investigation and you decide, I really love science, I'm into microbiology, well, get into microbiology and then be able to have a narrative that circles around that. Like, I think Michael Crichton had it right. He wrote about things he was vastly interested in. He wrote about pirates. He wrote about paleontology. He wrote about, he created things that were very real to us, very, indicative of what we're trying to accomplish as a society in our writing and in our creative space. But that's literally all the show I have today for you. Please send in your submissions. I'd love to read them on air. dwelch9627@gmail.com. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to Creatacast.